Welcome to International Love Story. My name is Christina, and today I would like to welcome Christelle and James. Christelle is sitting in the US at the moment, and James in the UK. They are dating on distance, and I can't wait to get to know both of them a little bit better. Thank you so much for being here. Before we start, just go ahead and introduce yourself. So, who are you? What are you doing? Tell us all about you.
Go on, Christelle, you go first.
I go first. Okay. James and I actually just got married September 22nd of 2022. So we've dated long distance up until wedding, and now we're married long distance. As you said, I'm in the United States. I'm in actually San Diego. So I'm the far West Coast, 8 hours behind James. And what I do during the day is I work for an organization that helps kids fall in love with reading. And as much as I can, I like to chat with James via Zoom. And that's how long distance works for us right now.
And I'm James, and I also got married on the September the 22nd, 2022 to Christelle in San Diego. And we just also had our kind of British version of our wedding in March. I'm in Darlington, which is in the northeast of England. And I currently work for the Methodist Church as part of a team of people who help deliver training for about 20 odd years in both Scotland and England. And I write a bit and I read quite a lot.
We both like to write. And actually, that's how we met. We met because we're both writers. And so we ended up in a common online circle because of our writing, really, I think. So our writing is kind of what brought us together.
And that was a couple of years ago, or when exactly did you guys meet?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't quite worked out the exact date in one sense. We have an idea that it was around about March or April 2019 on Twitter, I think, was sometime around then or a bit before.
2019. And then our first in-person date where we flew to Montreal. We had to find somewhere in the middle of us, and it was going to be our first time ever meeting each other in person. So that was Montreal, February of 2020. That was our first in-person date. Not knowing lockdown was about to happen, thinking that we had already planned our next trip to be coming. I think it was going to be May or something. And then lockdown hit.
Wasn't easy, but you were dating at that point already, right? In 2020, the first time you met in person. What is it, before we get into your long distance relationship, long distance marriage? Congratulations, by the way, on the marriage. Sounds super exciting. I would like to know all about it in a little bit. What I'm interested in is when you guys met. I mean, you can't really say when exactly you met, but probably there has been over Twitter. How did you call each other's attention? Like, was there specific wording that was used in a tweet? Was there a picture? Or what was going on that you were like, okay, I want to get to know this person a little bit better?
I remember Christelle every now and then would do things to gather people together. And there was this really long thread on Twitter one time, which was, which three famous people, dead or alive, would you have for a dinner party or something like that? That was one of our first things, because it was like, I don't remember all the other people, but it was to kind of get a long thread going of like famous people, lots of people like type thing and all that thing. So I remember that being a first thing. And every now and then I'd still get notifications of some random person wanting Colonel Gaddafi and Abraham Lincoln or some, whatever it was. So I think it was the kind of community. And I was like, yeah, a cute kind of profile photo that helped. Somehow we kind of knew that we had a very similar kind of spiritual view of the world. We mutually read the same books, or we knew of the same authors. And I'd seen Christelle, because she was better then at putting up little videos about her workplace. She had this kind of sort of fun, sprightly kind of character, which is clearly still the case. She'd dress up in little gnome outfits for her reading books and things like that.
We did meet on Twitter, which is so hard to, when people ask where you meet, I'm always hesitant to say, because they're like, oh, I literally hear this every time. Oh, you're one of those.
But I've never met a couple that met on Twitter, to be honest.
But Christelle, I want you to tell Christina what you like about me. That's what you need to do right now.
Well,
No, what caught your attention?
first of all, let me just say, I literally verbally told people there's no way I would ever meet anyone on Twitter. I've in a million years. I'm the most cautious. It's not happening, to the point of I can't tell you how many people I constantly block on Twitter. What did I like about James? Well, first of all, again, we were kind of in a writing community-ish. So I kind of watched how he wrote. The other thing I noticed is he was in community work, and it was similar to what I was doing at the time and actually am doing. So that caught my attention. We were doing not the same kind of work, but in the similar community world. That caught my attention. He also gathered people and asked questions and built community and Twitter and had a strong community of youth workers. And my job was and is youth and community work. We do it a little bit differently across the pond, but that caught my attention. And then, of course, he mentioned the books that we read. We had read Common Book, especially, the name is leaving me, but it was the one that drew us together. What was the book?
I was going to say Rachel Howard Evans.
Well, yeah, but also The Alchemist. What's his name? Paulo Coelho. We were both kind of into Paulo Coelho quotes, which is kind of dreamy, creative. And I think we just kind of noticed we were reading the same stuff. But what we think actually brought us together and how we ended up chatting was an author who is no longer with us. Her name was Rachel Held Evans. We were probably following her work. We were both following her work, and we think that's what brought us together. So that was a common thing to talk about. She has since passed away, but it drew her community closer. And we think that's probably where we met. So we started inboxing each other, which again, I never do. I never did. We started chatting, and after I thoroughly stalked him to make sure he was safe, I said, James, you should call me. I'm fast forwarding really fast. You should call me. And the first time we chatted on the phone, we talked about authors and things we were interested in. And we had studied something similar at college, university for him. And after we left that conversation, literally immediately, I realized, first of all, I went, oh no, what was that? Like literally, I was not going to like anyone or fall in love or anything. And there was definitely a connection from the beginning. I literally, from that moment on, I knew I was missing that conversation. I was missing him.
It was obvious for you guys that you have to meet in person.
We both, well, I don't know. I won't speak for James. My thought was, we're going to meet in person. I remember thinking, what if I missed meeting the most phenomenal human being on the planet? Like, what if I miss that opportunity? Either I go and we see what happens, or, we don't and nothing happens. But I remember thinking, what if? And I didn't normally think what if about people. So our conversations went deep really fast, which is something we both really, really enjoy. It includes spirituality, creativity, all of it. And the depth of conversation went deep really fast. And so it was worth the meetup and the what if. What if this is my soulmate?
How was it the first time you saw each other in person?
Shall I tell that story? Give you a break, Christelle?
Yeah, I would like to hear your version.
Is it interesting as well to see what your partner has to say in such a podcast?
I want to hear what you have to say.
The plan was that if we both arrived in Montreal together, that Christelle would probably get lost. And I had a few more days off. Annual leave to get there. So I arrived a couple of days earlier, and ironically, when I arrived, I got a little bit lost trying to get from the airport the bus from the airport to the hotel in Canadian February weather, which was like -15 out with jet lag. So that was fun. But so I'd had a couple of days in Montreal to kind of work out my bearings and also work out the time to get back and I'd get back to the airport to meet Christelle at the airport a couple of days later. So that's how we did it. I had probably a day to kind of be excited and slightly nervous and wondering what if, and trying to stay warm. I knew it'd be cold, but it was very cold. And so I remember the day quite vividly. I think her flight would get in about 4 o'clock. And I had most of the day to then work out how early to get to the airport. I think that was the point where I was thinking probably those similar thoughts that Christelle just shared about, I'm here now, but this could all go really badly wrong, or it could be like, it could just be really nice. It could just be nice. And we just didn't know. But at the same time, I was like, excited and nervous and all that kind of thing. And we joked about this. We joked about that Christelle would arrive at the airport and run over to the person she thought I was and then kiss the wrong person or hug the wrong person. So we'd laughed about it and how awkward it could be if she did that, or if she was on the wrong plane and all those kind of things. Because, that was just things we would laugh about. And I just said, I sent her a message on the plane. I'm standing next to the white post in the airport. I've got a check shirt on. I look probably the most British person here. We met. So the first thing we did, we kissed each other before we spoke to each other. We'd seen her as she arrived through. She was the last person off the plane, which I knew that would happen. A couple with a little dog she'd showed me a picture of on the plane. They got off about 10 minutes earlier. I don't know why there was a big gap. These kind of things. That was that. And then we took the bus. So we got on the bus and I got a ticket to get on the bus. I said, do we need to go to the metro station, the underground subway system?
Oh, I see where this is going. You have to.
and this was the moment. Our legendary story is that I paid Christelle for her tickets to get through to the underground system. You tap the card or you put the card in and the barrier lets you through to get to the underground station to say that you've paid. And I put my ticket in, I walked through the barrier. I'm standing the other side. I've got my luggage, or I've got Christelle's luggage, I think, because I've already been a gentleman. I'm carrying her luggage for her. Christelle isn't able to work out putting a ticket in the machine and walking through the barrier. There's a lady in the box next to security lady who's shouting at her in French because we're in Montreal. Stella's getting more and more stressed and it's not going through. I'm standing there going, you just need to put the card in and walk through, and I can't do it, and I can't do it. And I've made up a whole load of stories since about I reached over, I grabbed her and I carried her over the barriers, and I didn't do the knight in shining armor thing. But I kind of looked and I thought patiently and kindly and just said, Christelle, just put the card in. And there was queues of people behind her. And eventually she got through the barrier and a little bit kind of trying to kind of brush it off as not too much of a problem. And then I got her on the metro and we walked up back to the hotel and we walked through this snow-lit park in that evening, and it was just like Narnia with snow everywhere and it's perfect. And we went for a meal and it was really nice. But the barrier story is one of our little stories of when we first met. Christelle would probably tell it in a different way, but she's given me the microphone to tell it in my way first.
He changes that story every time.
What's the real story then?
It's 95% true. So our meetup the first time was wonderful. I mean, immediately felt comfortable and safe with James, which was rare for me. With men, so immediately felt safe and comfortable, and we had a beautiful time just exploring Montreal for 4 days, developing our relationship, and we decided that we would continue to see each other. I think we had even said, let's try to meet up every 3 months, so we knew that it was going somewhere, though we hadn't solidified it yet, but we both knew it was going somewhere. And then bam, lockdown hit, and what in the world? Obviously at that point no one knew it was going to be 18 months. We kind of started following long distance relationships, just that helped to know we weren't the only ones waiting and waiting and waiting, and we had to cancel a trip we had already planned, and it would be 18 months, I believe, until we saw each other in person again. One benefit of lockdown, which I hate to say that in general, but one benefit for us is for 18 months, we looked at each other and talked to each other every day for hours upon hours. And I don't know that you can get to know each other in 18 months than looking at each other every single day and just conversing literally every day in the most universal stressful moment of our time. I don't want to say of all time because I don't think that's true, but of our time. Getting to know each other and our becoming a relationship. And I think we became official somewhere around May, maybe, of 2020. It wasn't long after, but somewhere around May, I want to say, of 2020.
What did you do exactly to keep the relationship during this crazy time interesting? Because I remember, for example, when my husband and I, we used to chat every day, but there was also time difference. At that time, he used to live in Miami, I lived in Germany. Obviously, we would talk about our day, but that at some point it also got a little bit odd, to be honest. But at least we knew that we were going to see each other in person in 3 months again. Like, the goal you had of seeing each other every 3 months, this is exactly what we did. And it worked out just perfectly fine until the point where we moved together, we got married and all this. I mean, in your case, it was different. What did you do exactly to keep it interesting and to make you feel close to each other?
I think it must have been about the August of the first 2020. So we probably had done second lockdown by then in the UK. We had planned but then cancelled meeting up in about the May time. We started to do a thing where we were working out which countries were still open and we could travel to one of those countries. I can't remember which one. I think it was like a Caribbean island or something like that. We played around, like you could play around on Zoom, we could screen share, we could go, which countries are still open, which hasn't got COVID, how can we get, what are the restrictions, blah, blah, blah. We wanted to do it, but then I think it was that moment as well that we thought, this is so ridiculous. I think and our ups and our downs with it had got to the point where we were like, when we're told we can do this, we'll do this. We can't force this. We can't, to work out, was it Barbados or was it wherever it was at the time, Kingston, I think it was. We're trying to push something that can't be pushed. I think we just need that kind of excitement and the planning and finding something. We didn't pay for anything, but just could it happen? And then kind of going, only for another rule or another lockdown or another only another something else would actually then mean that, we would only get disappointed because we couldn't do it. So we kind of vowed in about that August to go, let's just not plan anything until we know we can do it, because we would just, and that could get into a spiral of excitement then disappointment. That wasn't what we wanted. We didn't have the emotional time for that, but also it wasn't doing us any good. So we just kind of realized I think by then we'd got into a pattern. But before we'd even met, we'd been reading to each other. So we read books to each other. We kind of read about, I think somewhere, and then the end of our first year, I did a little video. It's still on YouTube somewhere. And I put a photo of all the books that we'd read to each other. When I say that, the reality is it's all the books that I read to Christelle, rather than all the books that she read to me. But apparently they sound better in an English accent. So we read to each other. So we read many Paulo Coelho books. I think by then we'd read Harry Potter 1. We'd read various kind of spiritual books. Not that Paulo Coelho isn't. I don't know what else, but we probably read about 15 books to each other in that first year. And it's probably been about 6 or 7 each year since, I would think. So that's one thing. And then what we can end up doing is we can read the book or read a chapter and then we talk about it. What do we like? What do we not like? It could be like a self-help book. It could be, and we read that and we'll think, what does that reveal about me? What does that reveal about you? What do we need to change? Where does this take us? All these kind of self-discovery kind of things. We didn't discover watching videos or movies online until probably about 18 months in. So we don't really watch TV together that we shared, but we watched YouTube quite a lot. We realized that Saturday night or one of the nights at the weekend we'd say was date night. So it was UK time evening, and one of us would choose a country to kind of do, and then we'd plan a load of videos to watch together. So we went to Scotland or Germany or France or Spain or Mexico, and we would watch YouTube videos about that country and tourism and food and travel, and spend the evening just watching things together and explore a country digitally.
Can I interrupt you? Because we did it. We were quite creative now that I think about it, and we haven't done it in a while. But we would create the whole date as if we were traveling there. So we would find a video that showed us either traveling by plane, train, or boat or whatever, and that would be like we're traveling there. Then we'd find food videos from that location, and then we would find another video of actually going through the location, depending on which one of us was leading the date at that time. We were quite creative about it, and sometimes, usually James, would make food that had something to do with that, or where we were. And so we would make our own foods and have a drink, and we were actually quite creative about it, and that gave us things to talk about and be creative in that way. So that was really fun. We should do it again.
I think we did about 52 countries in about 18 months.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then we could explore and hit on countries that that neither of us had been to. So we had certain favorite YouTube people, we had certain favorite, and then we found other things as well. And so
we started meeting up with other people. We kind of started introducing each other. It was important that if we were doing this, we meet each other's friends and family. So we started doing online meetups too. We introduced each other to the only way we could do this. Like when you're dating in person, you meet friends, family. So we did it online during that time. I met his closest friends. He met my closest friends and family. And that's super important too, because it helps make the relationship real. Until you meet your partner's friends and family, you can't really get to know that side of them. So that was really important to us. And we did that during lockdown. And a lot of people were doing that, I think. And what's funny is our community started to shift a little bit because it was lockdown and it was the people who wanted to meet up on Zoom. And we started having coffees or drinks or meetups, celebrating birthdays that way. I mean, it was all different and new.
It feels a long time those days in terms of lockdown. It does seem a long time ago. The other thing we did was we went to different churches. So Sundays or Saturdays, whenever the church services were, we didn't pick globally different churches, but if there were church services online, we just explored different places to go in terms of like, we could just go on Zoom to visit
church and spiritual places. Cause we explored quite a few different faiths in that time period, which was amazing.
So you did get to know each other better, but you also did get to know yourself even better through that journey. I just think it's interesting how you can turn something, say, so negative in quotes, into such a positive experience the way you did it.
I don't know. We've talked about this in the past. We don't really say it now, but I don't know if lockdown hadn't happened, if we would have been able to get to know each other in the way that we did, because it forced us into a communication that I don't know that we would have had otherwise. Because had lockdown not happened, we would have continued on our 8-hour work days, at least here in America, our work day, and then chatting only when the time fits. But suddenly we had all this time. We can't say what would or wouldn't have happened, but suddenly we had all this time together. And what is that saying where you get to know yourself better when you get to know someone else in an intimate way? It's like you're facing the person and learning more about them, but also more about yourself. Yeah, it was a beautiful time, I think. I think even during that time we said, someday we'll look back at this and have really good memories of this time and say, do you remember we used to sit together and look at each other every day, all day?
And we still do, because we're not together.
No.
So we still do in that way. And I will paraphrase, I didn't stop working, so I didn't go on furlough. I was still working throughout the entire time. So, but we did have more time together than we do now. Yeah, we dug deep, actually. I think we dug deep because we were processing a lot of stuff in ourselves. And some of that we explored a bit together through reading. And other times we just needed to have fun. And, we almost set aside date night so that we didn't talk deep stuff one night a week. And it was more like, let's have fun because we're allowed to have fun. Those kind of things, which seems a bit, I don't know, saying that out loud seems weird, but it's actually what we needed to do for ourselves.
So you kept it interesting, definitely. I mean, the fact that you read books to each other, that's just, I don't know, that's super creative, first of all. That's something that wouldn't even have crossed my mind, I think. But I think if you're in a situation like that, and you do have no other choice, you basically hold any straw, as you would say in German, you can get in order to feel close to each other and to get to know each other better, because you didn't have another choice, as mentioned before. And then if I calculated correctly, you were dating on distance during COVID for 18 months, but you got married last year in September. So that means that you saw each other again, so physically, and then basically you hit it off from there and you went straight to like getting married and in front of the altar.
I'm so bad with math.
October 21, the borders are opening up and Christelle can come over to the UK. That's when he came to London. Is that the first time you'd left the States? is it?
So do you mean travel to Europe? Yeah, that was the first time that you traveled
Yeah.
to Europe.
Yeah. So Christelle came over in the October. I proposed when I went back to San Diego. My first trip to San Diego was in that Christmas. 3 days after landing in San Diego, we got engaged. Yeah, so we got married almost a year after the first time she came to the UK. We got married.
We had seen each other more than that, right?
We did, yeah. So we saw each other about 4 times between the first time and then getting married.
Yeah, we made the same experience, by the way. In our case, it was 4 times as well. 5 times in person until we got married.
Yeah, it's funny because people who don't do long distance, it's, you do date nights, every weekend probably. But ours being long distance, it's the in-person lasts several weeks and then we go home for several months, and then it lasts several weeks and then we go home for several months. It's funny because I never thought I would do a long distance, never in a million years. And I had always heard long distance doesn't work, which is why it was so important for us to meet other people like us so that we knew it could work, and that if it's the right person, it can work. You mentioned the whole book thing. It's one of the things that I knew I wanted in my significant other, spouse, partner, was a reader. Like, that was a non-negotiable, because it meant that they had a worldview and they were willing to learn and grow, and not just a reader of one genre, but an avid reader. So us reading together feels very natural because we're constantly introducing each other to the authors we like and that kind of thing. So I don't know why I was saying this, but I thought that was important to point out, because for us, it's so natural. It's so and important, and a value that we have, even to the point I actually work for a literacy organization that I believe so much in this. I work for a literacy organization that wants to empower children with a love of reading, because that value is so integral in my life. So, yeah.
And I think we barely have conversations about movies or TV shows. Neither of us had a TV at the time. Neither of us either do now. And it's almost like we kind of knew what we wanted in life in terms of how we learn and how we spend time for each other and ourselves. So it was almost natural. And obviously I needed to read Christelle the Harry Potter book so that when she came to England, she'd know what it would look like. And we could go to all the Harry Potter locations and various things like that. So, when I read Harry Potter for the first time through lockdown, so, even that kind of famous book I'd never read, but I used that opportunity to read Harry Potter.
Through books as well, got to know each other very well. It's obviously still a big part of your lives, of your individual lives, but also of your relationship. At least this is how it sounds like to me. To jump a little bit forward, you did have the chance to get to know each other very well during COVID. You saw each other in person again after 18 months of lockdown, all the craziness that was going on. And then you got married recently. I mean, just a couple of months ago in September, right? September last year. How was that? Because now I'm very curious about not only how the wedding was, when I understood correctly in our little pre-conversation we had before I hit the record button. You got married first in the US, right? Mm-hmm. And then you had another celebration in the UK again. But before we get into the details of your wedding, I'd like to know how your friends and family members in general reacted to this interesting constellation of long distance, friendship, relationship, and then marriage.
I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. And at first they were like, what in the world did you do? And then, but all of my friends were very much, actually, this makes a lot of sense for you, Christelle. It seems unbelievable, but not. It's totally something you would do. When we explain our relationship to our closest friends and our closest family, and they get to know each other, it makes a lot of sense once they meet us and get to know us and hear our story. It makes sense. But I think, and maybe you know this too, Christina, did you have to explain yourselves to friends and family when you started dating someone from so far away, or were they okay with it? Or
Yeah, for most parts. So I had one friend who was a little bit skeptical and who tried to protect me, because also in our case, when Nacho and I, before we started dating, so we had the friendship, I was friend zoned. So I was quite heartbroken in the beginning. It was quite difficult for me. So it was just natural for her to protect me, kind of. So I understood as well. But once families and friends got to know my husband, we're married since 7 years, 6 years already in a relationship since 7 years. It wasn't a big deal anymore, not at all. And nowadays, everyone just loves him. So even my siblings, they would ask. I have 3 siblings, so I'm the oldest as well.
oh,
And even my 2 brothers, they would ask, "Hey, what is Nacho up to? When can we hang out with Nacho?" I'm like, "Hey, thank you." So it became quite natural, despite the language barrier, the cultural differences. Besides the one friend, I've never had anyone, fortunately, because I wouldn't know how I would have reacted on that. Anyone in my closest circle who would react in a negative way towards it.
yeah. Yeah. So our closest friends and closest family who have gotten to know us, I think they enjoy watching us and being part of our relationship and being part of, I think we live our life. If you want to be part of our life, well, you're welcome into our life and you get to be part of our celebrating and our books and our everything that makes us come alive. If you don't, then, that's fine too. But it's been fun getting to know each other's. Again, from the beginning, it was important that we meet each other's friends and family. And we did that the best we could on Zoom. It's tricky, again, when it's long distance. We've done the best that we can long distance. And it's been quite enjoyable because I get to meet the British friends and family, and I get to learn new phrases and terms. And James has quite a few really good, amazing youth worker female friends who immediately embraced me. They were very close youth worker friends from UK, and they immediately invited me into their friend group and made me one of theirs. And they ended up even throwing me what they call it in England, hen party. Here we call it a bachelorette party, but they threw me a cute hen party, and they came to her wedding, and that was really fun. But learning each other's culture through friends is always interesting too, because England and America, you would think, are very, very similar, but we still have words that aren't the same, and phrases, and we operate. Our humor is different, so our energy is a little bit different. Brits are quite reserved, I think, whereas Americans that like. So just learning that and learning that that there is a cultural difference. It doesn't seem like there would be there, but there is quite a cultural difference. So being able to learn about each other's cultures, even through friends, has been fun as long as we're patient with each other. Would you add anything to that, James? Or
No, I think we weren't the only people having to navigate long distance during a time where everybody was separated and isolated. It meant that the tools were there.
yeah,
So I could meet Christelle's brothers on a Zoom call, or various things like that could actually happen. And so there was the occasion, so when I visited. So even when I visited or Christelle would visit here, we were still careful about COVID because people still couldn't see each other, but we could fly. There was still like that thing of like, is everyone vaccinated? And so there's still people we couldn't even see face to face, even when we're in the same country, because of various things like that. So we ended up meeting up with different friends and family online, so that when we maybe only saw each other face to face at the wedding, we'd had at least some of those conversations beforehand. I've only had positive, like you, Christina, positive things from my friends who've seen our relationship over the course of 2 or 3 years and realize how I am, and how happy I am, and various things. So
I think people who want the best for you and who want to see you happy celebrate your happiness, and that would be true for anyone, and it's true for us. Those who want to see us happy and maybe have seen our struggles in the past and get to see this happiness and who want to be part of it, they celebrate us, and that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, that's been fun. Yeah.
I mean, that's the same experience I've made, that the ones who are close to you, they support you. And even if you get out of there heartbroken, they'll still be there, and they'll be like collecting the pieces of you, like everything will be all right. But in your case, obviously this didn't happen, luckily, otherwise we wouldn't sit here. Because for you, the ring bells would ring in the US and in Great Britain. September, the wedding in the US, how was it? Like for you, James, especially, was it like little cultural shock even, like all the traditions, or was it just like, okay, I just go with the flow? How did you feel?
So various things. When Christelle said simple, and we kind of said we're going to do a simple thing, every time we'd have a conversation about the simple wedding we were going to have in the United States, it ended up becoming, we're not thinking that we need a car for that bit. And then we kind of, do you mean what does that actually mean, that we're doing like a rehearsal dinner? What is that? And how does that happen? Oh, is that, so it was almost like I was having to kind of catch on with what these traditions meant.
Mm-hmm.
But also we changed plans with about 3 months beforehand. If I remember rightly, we had an outdoor picnic kind of plan at one point, but actually the thought of that I could sense was getting stressful for Christelle. So we kind of said, can we find out a small venue that can do us some food for us? And we hired a cafe for the lunchtime for the food. And we kept everything small. We got married outside because, I don't know about you, Christina, but in the UK, you can't really do outside weddings so easily because of the weather. But in San Diego, you can in September. So we could just get married outside. And I mean, I could still email the kind of important people in terms of like the cafe, and I was involved in printing off the service sheets and bringing them. And Christelle will hopefully say that even though I was 5,000 miles away, could be very much involved in it and wanted to be, and tried to take the stress off when I could understand what it was that we were trying to do in terms of some of the bits around the edges, and like planning the service and with the celebrant and working out how the legal process of being married in the States works out, and those kind of things. So I can't remember what your question was. There were some differences, but they weren't, I don't think there were huge differences, but it was just kind of working out what they were at the time. And then on the day or that week, we had the usual last minute panics about various little things. On the day itself, with the exception of one thing, which Christelle may share with you, actually the whole day just went smoothly. The weather was great. We got married outside the bay in San Diego, and before Christelle arrived, because we were all gathering, there was like 3 dolphins swam in a kind of circular motion in the sea just outside. We watched these dolphins, and I think at that moment was kind of a confirmation that in terms of like deep magic and something very deep happening. And it was like, yeah, this is just a nice kind of moment to have dolphins swimming on your wedding day. It was a combination between spiritual and simple and outdoors. Yeah, that's kind of what we were aiming for. And we got some lovely photos, and then we went to Santa Barbara for our honeymoon on the train a couple of days later. So we did a kind of US sort of 4-day honeymoon.
We both had to learn each other's traditions, which was interesting because I didn't realize maybe England didn't do some of the things we do. We learned some of these things. And we actually thought we would get married in England. So I was thinking we're going to go full British old church kind of thing, which we don't have here in America.
Yeah, you're wondering whether we could hire St. Paul's Cathedral or Westminster Abbey, or
I was going all the way. Like I thought we could just go all the way. And so I even learned that you can't just go to any church in England and get married. You have to live in what is it called? The area, whatever that means, like in the area. And then you have to get permission if you don't actually go to the church. All that to say is we ended up deciding to get married in America. And the reason behind that was, I think we realized at some point James was actually going to move here And we just thought, you know what, let's get married where we think we're going to live at first. But saying that, our wedding wasn't super traditional, I wouldn't say. We decided at another point, let's just make this who we are and about us. And so we hired an officiant because she did hand fasting ceremonies, which is a tradition, an old tradition in England. And we thought, oh, that'd be a really cool way to bring in your traditions in England. So she does hand fasting ceremonies. We just fell in love with her from the time we met her. She did a beautiful ceremony. We ended up doing it outside under a tree in Shelter Island, which is along the sea. And she helped set it up. We didn't have any decorations at all. She helped set it up so that people were lined up when I walked down the aisle. I had an aisle to walk down, and it was just very simple and absolutely beautiful, but not even necessarily a traditional wedding per se in America. So even in James learning about our traditions, we didn't do it super traditional, but it was very, very, very much us. I think we included contemplative prayers and also a Buddhist prayer at the very end. And I only have positive memories of the entire experience. And it was beautiful and lovely. At one point, we thought we wouldn't be able to have our first dance. I don't know if they have this in England. I still don't know if you have a first dance in England, but it was something that was really important to me. I really wanted to have a first dance, and James made sure that happened because he knew how important that was to me. And so he made that happen. And James, too, you asked at some point, would I say that I would say you were very helpful in the whole process. He was absolutely involved the entire way through. And it blew me away that he wanted to be helpful and be so involved. And he very, very much was. He took initiative and called our person who put together our dinner, who, by the way, was phenomenal. I can get overwhelmed. I'm super ADHD. I can get overwhelmed. And our officiant did everything from beginning to end. And our cafe owner did everything from flowers to cake to meals. We didn't have to pick out our cake. She did it, and it was perfect. It was beautiful. But James was very much involved in the entire process, and it was beautiful.
Everything was,
Naturally.
Yeah, absolutely. We had outdoor games played at the cafe, so the kids that were there could play games. And
easy going. I mean, this is how it sounds like for a wedding, which is quite rare because usually, obviously, organization, as I could hear, was quite stressful, especially for you, Christelle. But in the end, once it came to the wedding day, everything was just natural, no?
Absolutely. We changed what we thought we were going to do, which sounded very simple until we actually started doing it. You said the picnic, and we realized actually it's not as simple as we thought it could be. And so that's why we went with hiring our officiant, going to the cafe that we went to, and doing all the things that we did. And it made it, again, the cafe owner where we had our reception was phenomenal, just phenomenal, and made our reception absolutely perfect. So then we did the British side, only went to England and did a celebration dinner in Darlington, which was our closest friends and family. Very, very small, but we got to celebrate on that side of the pond. And it was just a dinner. Well, let's see, we decided to make a weekend of friends and family who could join us. And so we ended up doing a dinner at James' house that he cooked all himself and put together while the ladies took me out for my hen party. He cooked an entire dinner for our guests who were in town from around England, literally all over England. And that was one night. And then we met up with them and did a walk the next day. If I'm forgetting something, just tell me, James. And then our dinner was Saturday night, the official celebration dinner with everyone. And that was just fun and light. And a good friend of James did a prayer. Another good friend that met me, I think, first from the very beginning, did our toast. So what'd you call it there? Is it a toast? Yeah, a toast. So she did a little speech and a toast, and that was fun. And we just ate and had a great time. And the next day Sunday morning, we did brunch with those who were still remaining and said our goodbyes. And our friends and family made it a beautiful, beautiful time. I
Yeah.
think we felt really loved.
Yeah. Yeah. This is also what we've learned, like, because we didn't have a big wedding, it was actually quite small, but everyone who was close to me, unfortunately, Nacho's family couldn't join because it was quite spontaneous, to be honest.
Yeah.
But everyone who was close to me, no questions asked, they were like, send us the date and we will be there. And they were there. And that what made it special. We didn't want a big ceremony either, but it was just perfect the way it was. Up to a point where people even talk about it nowadays, because everything just happened in a natural way. Nothing was forced.
Yeah.
Or it was just like, hey guys, you're here. Let's have a great party. Let's celebrate love together. And that's just the most important thing. I love that.
Did you get married in Germany or Argentina? Where was or neither?
Neither. We got married in the Las Vegas of Europe, which is Denmark. Denmark is known for intercultural couples in Europe.
Okay.
Get married there because when it comes to the papers, it's easier than in any other country. So we got married in Sonderburg, which is close to the border of Germany. That why my family didn't had to go too far.
Okay.
We got the marriage certificate, which is in actually 3 languages, and that helped us a lot because a few months later, I moved to the US and it was already in English, so we didn't have to translate it or anything. Back to you guys, because we do have May 2023 already. You guys, you are married since a couple of months. You are in a relationship since a couple of years, and I guess that you do have some future plans as well. After what I've heard, the plan in the long run is for James to move to the US. Is that right?
Yes.
And you also shared with me in the previous little mini conversation we had before that you are putting everything in order. So James get, I guess, the work permit and the visa and everything that's needed in the US.
We realized a long time ago, subconsciously, that we could probably only deal with one thing at a time. We could deal with a world pandemic, and then we dealt with the process of the weddings, planning those things. But we wanted to do those, and then we decided that we would do the process of me moving to the States once we got married. It makes it sound like the weddings were difficult, but I think it's more to do with there's only so many hours of our week that we could actually give to planning. Could be like challenging things or writing emails and things like that. So we have just in the last 1 month really started to kind of find out all the forms, but work out what we need to fill in and the order of doing that. Yeah, we're at the tentative beginning stages of that. We know it's going to be a process. We know it's going to take a little while. We know we can still see each other in between in terms of travel. And we know there's work to be done. Yeah, I'm looking forward to being stateside and being with Christelle in the US for however long we decide that that's what we do, and build a life together there. So I don't have much to add because that's probably where we're at with the process.
Yeah, anyone who's gone through the visa application process knows it's scary. I don't know why, but it's scary. So I've talked to quite a few friends who have gone through it prior to us or in the middle of it and gotten some great advice. And we learned that when you're in the process, whoever is applying to go to whichever country it is you're going, we learned that they can't come to, at least in America. We found out James can't come here while we're in the middle of that application process. So we now know that I will be going, once the visa's filed or the process is started, I can only go to him or we can meet outside the US. And one of my friends told us that we knew James was coming here for Christmas. That put us off a little bit, but we just spoke to a lawyer recently and time to start the filing. And she told us it can take anywhere from a year to 2 years which I think that was like, oh, that's longer than we thought. Okay. Yeah. I don't know how long it took you, Christina, but I didn't know it would be up to 2 years. But
In my case, it was fast because I didn't apply for a green card or anything. What I did is the L2 visa, and L2s are usually issued within just a couple of weeks. I expected it to take at least 6 months, but it took 2 months until I had everything in order.
what is an L2 visa?
When Nacho moved to Miami, he's from Argentina, but his company transferred him to Miami. He got the L1 visa, which is issued for people with special skills. And because of his company who transferred him, they took full responsibility. And I basically just got the opposite part of it, or the matching part, which is the L2 visa, the spouse visa for the L1 visa. And the process was very, very easy, I must say. But in our case, my husband lost his job because the company got bought by Amazon. And then we had to pack our things within not even 2 months, it was 6 weeks. So we had to leave the country, both of us, and find another plan. And something else to do and somewhere else to live. Yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, that's the short version of our time in Miami.
Yeah. So we're filing the marriage visa. We had learned about you can file a fiance visa, but we decided to wait till we're married and do the marriage visa. So we're now learning all about this and all the things. It's interesting it helps you understand what other people go through in filing for visas and trying to move to be together. So very interesting. We're learning a lot.
Yeah,
it's in the process now. It's time.
What is, if you imagine yourself, let's say in 5 years, where would that be? What would you do? Where would you live? Like, let's say it's a perfect world and everything goes through with the visa. Where do you see yourself?
Do you want me to answer? Do you want to answer? We can both.
Yeah, go on. Go on.
Okay, 5 years just together. Our 5-year plan, I think both of us would say, and James could change this. We have no idea where we will actually be living as long as we're together, because our short-term plan is very much America, but our kids are older, so we can be anywhere in the world. We would like a home base where we can travel, but where that home base is, we don't quite know in 5 years. Of course, the short-term plan is just to get together, and that seems so big right now. But the 5-year plan is to, I think, have a home base and be able to travel and be able to be creative, be able to continue writing and possibly helping other people in a healing process. But I think we just both really, really want the chance to adventure and travel. So our 5-year ultimate amazing goal would be to be together, have a home base, and be able to adventure, travel, and have fun. Just have fun.
Yeah, I don't think we have locations in mind. We have emotional states of being in mind, and I think we have maybe a renewed sense of adventure. Of this is the path we're on to be together. Anything beyond that is more than a bonus, but anything beyond that will kind of take care of itself as it happens.
Yeah.
I don't think either of us are saying we have to be in San Diego or we have to be in England long term. We'd be perfectly happy with just having a home base and being able to travel to see our kids on both sides of the pond, see our friends and family on both sides of the pond, but being able to explore the world together as well.
And then I got one last question for you guys before we end this conversation. By the way, I really, really enjoy talking to you so far. It's very, very interesting, especially meeting another couple who's dating on long distance and who's even, in a long distance marriage. Find it very fascinating also the path you've chosen and how things basically connect you. And I guess the timing was also right, otherwise we wouldn't sit here right now. If you look back in general, all the experiences you've made, what advice would you share with anyone who's maybe in a similar situation as you guys, who's made a similar experience of long distance relationship, long distance marriage, intercultural relationship? What would it be?
I can say on my end, going back to always hearing long distance can't work, scrap that. There's no rule. There's no rule about what can and can't work. If it's meant to be and you find the person that works with you and you find love, you can make it work. And if you find the right person, it's worth it. The right person makes all the challenges 1,000 times worth it. So scrap any advice that says otherwise. You can make it work, and it is part of the learning process and part of the growth of being together. And of course, a lot of patience and a lot of just a desire to be together, whatever it takes. Never stop learning and growing together and growing towards being better both individually and together. I think that's I don't know if that's advice, but it's kind of my statement of anyone who wants to delve into this long distance thing. It's a grand adventure. It is worth every moment. I will never say don't do it. It can work.
I think I would just say that the right person, you find a way. So you find a way to communicate, you find a way to express how you feel towards each other. And on long distance, you find those ways of doing it, and it works for you because that's how it's meant to be. Yeah, there are things we know we can't do, but I think there are things we know we can and we do better, I think. There are things, I think people talk about love languages or various things like that in terms of how we give and receive affection and love during, in a relationship. And, on one hand, we learn about this, but on the other hand, we realized that there are ways of communicating how to be with each other during difficult times and good times, and but do that from a long distance perspective, and being present with each other can be the most powerful thing. We don't always have to talk on the phone. We can just, or on Zoom, we can just sometimes we just sit and do our own thing. So, the washing up still needs to be done and the cooking still needs to be done, but we're in the same space with each other doing it. It doesn't have to be we're attentive to each other. So it's just, sometimes the day-to-day of life still needs to happen, but that happens with normal couples too, in that sense. You're in the same space, but one person's working on a laptop and the other person's doing the vacuuming. Well, sometimes we do the same, so we could just mute each other when it just gets a bit too distracting. It's just how it works. So is there advice? No, I wouldn't say it's advice. I'd say exactly the same that Christelle said. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and you just find a way.
Thank you so much. I think your story is quite inspiring. Especially, I don't know about you, but if I think back about our relationship and how it all started, I've never thought that I will sit here right now. That we did the things we did, all the beautiful moments we had together, and I know we will have together, was definitely worth to jump completely out of the comfort zone and do something completely different. No one else, and I guess you made the same experience within your inner circle did before, so you had no one to lean onto or to ask like, hey, how did you do this and that, until you found a community of people who made similar experiences, but online. And I really appreciate your time today. I really appreciate that you were open towards sharing your story and your experience. What I will do as well, obviously, is I'm going to link everything below, and so the description of the YouTube video as well as of the podcast episode for everyone who's listening, if it's okay for you guys, so that they can contact you if they have some specific questions. As I said, sometimes someone in a similar situation is listening and can help to exchange information and to grow the community and to connect. Rather than that, is there anything else you would like to share? Otherwise, we will slowly lean towards the end.
Thank you, Christina, for letting us tell our story. This is the first time we've done an interview like this, and I think it's powerful to tell our stories so that other people can find a way and know that they're not alone and that it's possible. So I know that me meeting other people in similar situations helped us to know that we can do this. It's possible, and it can be a very beautiful and fun thing. So thank you for letting us be part of this, and I hope we meet more people similar and who have either gone before us or somewhere behind us or in the same path we're choosing you or part of the path. So just thank you.
Yeah, you will. There's a huge community already, which I love. Yeah. We just have to try to connect all of them and to make it bigger and bigger so everyone knows about everyone. That's the goal.
Thank you. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you. Nothing from me, but thank you.
Thank you so much.